Yes, so the title of my discourse today is The Cursing of the Fig Tree, or a question, as it is in the program, why did Jesus do that? Why did he curse the fig tree? There are two main purposes for me to take up this subject. One is what should we, how should we understand this incident, and especially what Jesus said? And there's another thing, even maybe more important, why I have decided to take it up, is, well, technical aspects of how it was done. So there is a double purpose to this talk, not only to learn the message that Jesus wanted to convey in this incident, although the message is interesting as well. If somebody doesn't know what the message is, it will be interesting also from this point of view. But even more interesting thing is the technicalities connected with that, because they show how deep the Bible could be, and that is something that is not generally seen, discerned, or understood by Christians, including Bible students. So that's why I think it's this double surface will come out as we go. So let's start from two accounts that we can find in the Bible, in the New Testament. Matthew 21. Now in the morning, as he returned into the city, he hungered. And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon, but leaves only, and said unto it, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever. And presently the fig tree withered away. And you have the same description of the same incident somewhere else in Matthew, but some details are different. And that's the question, why are they different? Let's read it. And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if haply he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves. For the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered it and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. If you can immediately see the differences, here they are. For the time of fig was not yet. No mention of that is in this account, that it was not the time of fig. And even a greater difference, here Jesus, the words he used for cursing. Here he said, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever. But according to Mark, he didn't say that. He said, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. Some people might say, well, what difference does it make? We know that, well, if nothing grows on you, on a tree, nobody will eat anything from that tree. That's obvious. But did Jesus say this, or did he say that? And why is it recorded in two different ways? We know from the Bible that if something is different, it is for a purpose. What that purpose is. Is it wrong? Should higher critics be happy to attack the Bible saying, well, you see, you got it all wrong. What are you believing? He said, well, the same incident described in the two different ways. So did he say this or did he say that? So that is the reason why I have decided to take it up. So let's continue. What is the meaning of figs or a fig tree in the Bible? I think that is generally known that it is the Jewish nation. A fig tree is a Jewish nation. Can we prove it biblically? Because I always like to prove everything. Or unless it cannot be proven. Then you say, okay, we can logically think that this or that is true because of that, but we do not have hard proof for that. But for that we have hard proof, and the proof is, I'm not going to read everything, it is in Jeremiah 24, the first 10 verses. I will just start reading it and leave it off. The Lord showed me, and behold, 2 baskets of figs were set before the temple of the Lord. One basket had very good figs, even like the figs that are first ripe, and the other basket had very naughty figs, which could not be eaten, they were so bad. Like these good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, whom I have sent out of this place into the land of the Chaldeans for their good. For I will set my eyes upon them for good, and it goes on and on. I pause here. So the good figs, the good part of the Jewish nation, which will be blessed sooner or later, and as the evil figs which cannot be eaten, they are so evil, surely thus said the Lord. So will I give Zedekiah the king of Judah and his princes and the residue of Jerusalem that remain in this land, and them that dwell in the land of Egypt, and I will deliver them to be removed into all the kingdoms. You see, blessings promised here, punishment problem. So but it doesn't matter for us because I'm not going to go into the blessings or punishments. All I want to show is that a fig tree is the Jewish nation, containing good figs and bad figs. Both of them present in the one and the same nation. Very similar language is used in one of the parables. In Luke, a certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down, why cumbereth it the ground? And he answering said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it, and dung it, and if it bear fruit, well, and if it not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. Similar language, and the same symbol of a fig tree, and problems with the fruit on the tree. What does it mean, these 3 years I come? The 3 years are now showing up. These 3 years, 3 different methods used by God to deal with Israel. So that finally they could, as a nation, they could bring fruit when Jesus was to be sent to them and come down. Through Moses, through the prophets, and through the learned scribes like Ezra. These are the 3 different ways God had been trying to, before our Jesus Lord was sent down to that nation, had been trying to teach them, to educate them, to prepare them to bear fruitage when the right time should come. Which the right time was, of course, Jesus, because Jesus, as we know, came to the Jewish nation, and all the little flock was to be from the Jewish nation. The fact that the heathen were invited into the calling was only because Israel as a nation was not ready to accept Messiah. A small fraction, a small part of the nation was ready to do that. So they entered into that little flock, into the new gospel-led dispensation and the new class God was about to develop. But the remaining part, most of it, the majority of the little flock, had to be found outside of the Jewish nation. As a nation, however, they never properly reacted to God's dealings with them in the 3 methods he had been using toward them before Jesus came down. Quite to the contrary, those who were sent to them in the 3 different ways, the 3 symbolic years, were tortured, not accepting deliverance that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, moreover of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. That description comes, of course, from Hebrews. So that was the way they welcomed those who were used by God according in the 3 ways to educate them, to prepare them, to help them to receive Christ and become parts of the little flock. Is it a good thing that it didn't happen then? I think it's a good thing from our point of view, because we would never have been born. Because had God completed the little flock in the 1st century, the kingdom on earth would have been set up in the 2nd century AD. And most people, including ourselves, would never have been born. But some people will not be born. Sooner or later the kingdom will come and the new cabinet arrangements will be applied. Still, God didn't give up on that nation, even though they made waste of what he had been trying to do toward them, but tried again the 4th time. Why did he try the 4th time? Why did he use another method? The 3 methods did not work out, so maybe it's good for nothing. Maybe we should give it up and forget about it. But he tried again, the 4th time. Why? Because the dresser of the vineyard, Moses, the prophets, the scribes, the 3 ways of dealing with that nation before Jesus came, asked him to. Remember that it was in the parable. God was ready to eradicate the whole, to root it out, but the vineyard asked him to continue for 1 more year, to do something special, to use some dung, fertilizer, to help it grow, and if it didn't work out, he said he would agree to it being removed. How did they ask him? We say, how did Moses ask him? Moses was dead. How did the prophets who were dead then when Jesus came down ask him? They asked him through their pains, through their labors and continuous struggle for that nation. It had cost God a lot in the way of using all these different people and prophets, Moses, prophets and scribes for that nation. And if you put a lot of effort into something, you are not ready to resign, yes, to give it up so quickly. If you invest a lot of money in an investment, you want some return. You don't wake up one day and you say, I think I will leave that investment, $1 million put, one doesn't matter, I will leave it to waste and I will go and start something new somewhere else. You try to recover it, just like every logical person will do that. What did he do? What did he do? He dug about it and put in some dung. The better, newer word would be fertilizer, yes, but dung is probably a better fertilizer than those artificial fertilizers that are being produced right now. And so he dug it about, put in some dung, some fertilizer for better fruit bearing, which was no less, that dung, that fertilizer was no less than the service performed by Jesus and the apostles, who tried to bring home to the Jewish nation how greatly they had been misusing God's efforts on their behalf during the past 3 way over them, the 3 years mentioned before. So something special was to be done. Dung, fertilizer, the 4th way of dealing with that nation. A splendid example of the misuse of God's care in the 3 ways, and of God's trying to correct them through Jesus and the apostles, because that was the 4th way. Jesus and the apostles were the 4th way of God's dealing with them, can be found in Matthew 15, 1-9. Let's have a look at how Jesus and the apostles tried to do them, to help them, in a way that had never been attempted before. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. They brought up a charge against Jesus and his apostles. But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandments of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But you say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have you made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. I will be back to it in a moment because I'm not sure if it is clear. Is it clear to you in your language? It is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, then you don't have to honor your father or mother, because in our Polish language I had to look for a better translation. The older translation didn't get it right. Is it clear for you what it means? Or it's clear? No? I see some doubt. Okay, well, we'll be back to it. Let's finish what Jesus said and then we will try to explain it. You hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoureth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, but in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And now back to the real charge Jesus brought up against them, the Jews. The real charge was not that his apostles didn't wash their hands before eating. Jesus didn't even answer that because he showed them the real transgression they were guilty of. Part of the commandment that one should honor his or her father and mother was to look after them, to help them in old age. As we know, in the past there was no social care, no social benefits. So elderly people, elderly mothers and fathers, could only rely on their children to help them when they couldn't help themselves. Then they were too old, too sick to look after themselves. It was part of this commandment. But clever Jewish clergy, always hungry for money, power, money, clergy is always hungry for power and money, power, money, all the time, and it never changes. They said, if you pay a certain amount of money for the temple, you don't have to look after your father and mother. You will say to your elderly mother or father, you know, mother, father, I have made a gift for the temple. Here is the certificate. I paid in, I don't know how much money, maybe $1,000, maybe $500,000, doesn't matter. I paid a certain amount of money for the temple, and I am exempt from duty. I don't have to honor you by looking after you, by helping you, by assisting you in your old age. If you don't believe me, here is the certificate from the priest. That's the amount of money. I have no money left to look after you, to help you. But it would cost me to travel to you, to buy you medicine, to get you a doctor or whatever. I don't have that money. And Jesus brought up a real charge against them, and he showed them what they did with the commandments of God. It is a gift. By whatsoever you might be profited by me, whatever I could do to you by way of helping you in your old age, has been gifted, has been transferred to the temple. And the priest gave me a certificate, and he told me, I don't have to honor you anymore. Terrible. Terrible, but that's what the Jews did. The Jewish clergy, to be specific. That's why he said, hypocrites. But all in vain, all in vain. Even this extra fourth year of God's special care did not bring about the desired fruits. No good. It didn't help. Having killed all of God's servants sent to them in the past, before Jesus came down, they finally killed his son, Jesus himself. And the parable continues, and so do we. But last of all, he sent unto them his son, saying, they will reverence my son. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, this is the heir, come, let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance. And they caught him, and they cast him out of the vineyard, and slew him. That's in the parable, but you know what it is all about. The account of cursing the fig tree is quite telling, proving there are types and antitypes in the Bible. And that is probably the main reason I have decided to take it up. To show, and Jesus shows us himself, and with this incident, he shows us that there are types and antitypes in the Bible. To a small extent, this type and antitype relation is present also in parables by Jesus or by any other human writers. In Poland, we've got writers who also wrote parables, and by means of those parables, they wanted to get across a message which was hidden in the parable. So it is not only Jesus. I think in America there are also writers who use this form of literary expression. But treating historical events as a type, as a picture of some other reality, can only be found in the Bible. As only God's genius can do what? Can control the run of events and then record that run of events in such a way as to make it an illustration of something else and something much, much bigger. And, what's more, of something that is only about to happen. So, how can you control the run of historical events and then describe them in the way that shows something that is something else, something much more important, and something that is about to happen in the future? It takes God's genius to do that. No human writer, even the greatest one, could do that. If only because they don't know the future. And probably even if they did, or even if they predicted what might happen, they are not free to write what they like. It must be a historical fact. The cursing of the fig tree is a real event from Jesus' life, with all its details subjected to some higher coffee or tea. I will never set my foot in this house again. Cursed be that house and all the inhabitants thereof, you might say. And he would go out and the house went down. Well, that's not like him. He was so gentle, so understanding. He wouldn't even curse a tree if it really didn't have figs for him to satisfy his hunger. If he reacted like this, he wanted to show something. He didn't show his anger at the tree before there being no figs on it. No, that was not the reason. The cursed tree withers away immediately. Is it natural? It took a miracle. So, you see, Jesus used miracles not only to feed the crowds, but he also used a miracle to show to show something on a tree. And it withered away immediately. It took a miracle. The words of the cursing are different in each account. Matthew, let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever. Mark, let no man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. Two different words, two different curse words. Similar in the long run, because if there is no fruit, nobody can eat it. Still, the words are different. And again, they are not different accidentally, they are different intentionally. It was intentional on his part to make it recorded in two different ways. In short, Jesus had planned the whole event in this way, then he acted it out, and then by inspiration it was recorded in the Gospels in two different versions. Because he wanted to show a certain message. But that message required two different versions. Because if we decipher the message, we will see that otherwise the message would be wrong, incomplete, mistaken. Please note that in both accounts, the Greek forever is for an age. This translators usually think that if something should last for an age, it should be forever. For an age, one age, which means there are more ages than one, and for one of the ages, the curse should be valid, but no longer than one age. So Jesus literally said, let no fruit grow on thee henceforward for an age, and let no man eat fruit of thee hereafter for an age. An age is much, much shorter than forever. And that's for how long Jesus cursed the tree. For some time only, not forever. He didn't curse the tree, and we know that the tree is the Jewish nation. They were not cursed forever, for an age, for a period. And if it is only for an age, this age, no matter how long, sooner or later must come to an end. There's no other way. So let's have a look at the first description, the full account from Matthew. Now in the morning, as he returned into the city, he hungered. And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon but leaves only, and said unto it, let no fruit grow on thee henceforward for an age. And presently the fig tree withered away. Leaves are a sign that a tree is alive and should bring fruit, which is especially true of a fig tree, because a fig tree first bears fruit, with leaves coming out when the fruit is ripe. So when you see a fig tree covered in leaves, full of leaves from a distance, you can be sure that under the leaves, behind the leaves, there is fruit waiting for you. Because that is a special characteristic of a fig tree. But in this case, the leaves deceived. From a distance they showed that there is a lot of fruit, because the trees could be seen from afar, but they deceived because there was no fruit, in fact. So leaves, in our story, represent a semblance or appearance of faith and faithfulness. Just appearance, just semblance, but not real faith, not real faithfulness. There are no real fruits. Leaves deceived and made believe. Let's have two quotations about the Jewish nation, which show that it was true. This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, said Jesus on one occasion, and honoureth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. No fruits, only semblance, only appearance of faith. Drawing nigh with their mouth, the heart left far behind. Or later on, when the apostle wrote, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. Just a form, just appearance, just semblance, and that's it. Something on the surface, but inside, nothing that the surface indicates. Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward for an age. What age did Jesus mean? When he cursed the fig tree, the Jewish nation, and when he told that there should be no fruit should grow on the Jewish tree, on the Jewish nation, for an age. What age? The Gospel age, during which the Jews as a people were rejected from all of God's favor with no fruit whatsoever. Did the Jewish nation bring any fruit after they rejected Jesus? No. They were put aside for an age, not forever, for an age, during which, that age is called the Gospel age by us, during which the remaining little flock members, that could not be gathered from the Jewish nation because they didn't react properly as a nation. Only a few individuals did. So all the remaining little flock members had to be found somewhere else. So they were put aside for the time being, for an age, and the little flock started to be looked after or looked for somewhere else from within the heathen nations. It echoes the curse on Cain of Genesis 4:12. As you know the picture, if you know that picture, if you remember the meaning, Cain is the Jewish nation and Abel is Jesus. Cain killed Abel, Jewish nation killed Jesus, for which they were cursed, they were expelled from their country, but Canaan got a special sign, a special mark, so that nobody could kill him. People might persecute Cain, might say bad things about him, that way they were not allowed to kill Cain, just like the Jewish nation. Whatever might happen to them by way of punishing them, by making them bear the consequences of what they did, God said he would never allow anyone to destroy them out of existence as a nation. So you can do whatever you like to Cain, but you can never leave Cain. The national identity, this mark that was given to Cain, but that's not my story. So echoes the curse on Cain when he heard from God, "When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength." And this was uttered in the antitype when they killed Jesus and rejected him. From now on, for an age, when thou tillest the ground, when you work on the ground to get some fruit from it, it shall yield unto you no strength. It will be barren. It will be nothing. You will do this or that, but it will be insignificant. The same curse is also found in Luke. Can also be found in Luke, in Jesus' words, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which kills the prophets and stonest them that are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, as a hen doth gather her brood under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate." Exactly for the same reason, at the same time in their history. After Jesus' rejection, they were to be put aside for an age. More particularized in Luke 13, there in the millennium, shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you, unfaithful Jews, most of the nation, shall see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God. It must be its earthly face, with all those people mentioned by Jesus. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, its earthly face. And you yourselves thrust out of the earthly face, because you will not be part of the ancient worthy class. Most of you will not be ancient worthies, you as Jewish people. And they shall come, and please note, Jesus says what will happen during the age of their rejection. And they shall come from the east, west, north, and south, from the nations around you. The little flock will be completed from the heathen nations of the world, and that is the meaning of coming from all those different parts of the world. And they shall sit down in the kingdom of God. It's heavenly faith, because now it's the little flock. But you will not be present as a nation, either in its earthly face or in its heavenly face. Here, only individuals from your nation, and in the heavenly part also some individuals only, with most of them taken out from all the other nations which are not Jewish. Having said that, in verse 25, Jesus leaves a spark of hope, however. "You shall not see me until the time come when you shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord." So we see, even though rejected for an age, a time was to come when they were to say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. It means your rejection, your barrenness, your dryness will be over. One day will be over, and you will say those words, "Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord." Because sooner or later, the time period of your rejection will come to an end. So there was to be no fruit on the Jewish tree only until the end of an age, and that age is the gospel age. Which logically leads to the conclusion that after the gospel age has come to an end, the fruits were to start growing. If I say somebody, "I will take it away from you for an hour," it means that after an hour I will give it back to you. Don't play with your smartphone. Listen to what mom has to say, listen to what dad has to say, listen to what the teacher has to say. But when the lesson is over, I will give the smartphone back to you. I will take it away from you for an hour. You will be rejected for an age. You will be rejected until you say, blessed is he that cometh, which means that after that, when that point of time is reached, everything will change. Elsewhere, Jesus calls that barren rejection period times of the Gentiles, and it was Jesus who used that word. It's not a Bible student's word or terminology invented for the purpose, but taken, uttered by Jesus and taken over from him by us. So in Luke 21, and they shall fall by at the edge of the sword, me here, he's talking about the Jewish nation, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So here again, Jesus marks a certain point in time, a deadline for the times of the Gentiles, because the times of the Gentiles were not to last forever. They coincided, their end coincides with the end of the age of Israel's rejection. Because times of the Gentiles started, and were to last only as long as little flock members were still needed, were still searched after. After which, Israel was to get back to be recovered to God's favor. And that's what we are all witnessing, and we have for some time now. That later part of Israel's role in God's plan, I mean, when I say later part, I mean the part after this one age of rejection is over. So the later part of Israel's role in God's plan is shown by Jesus through Mark, where the description of the same incident is a little different. And it is a little different because Jesus wanted to give a complete message. In one description he says, you will be rejected, you will bear no fruit, no little flock members will be taken from you as a nation after you reject me. Others will be invited from the west, north, south, east, and you will be put aside for that time. But there will be a time when some advantages, some benefits from you will again be available. Some people will start eating from you. As long as nothing grows on you, they will eat. Nobody will eat anything. But sooner or later, they will start eating from you, and that's why we have the same account with the details, with a few details changed. 2 details, in fact. Let's see, or let me remind you of what Mark says about the same story. And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if haply he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves. And here, please, difference number 1. For the time of figs was not yet. That was not in the previous account. And Jesus answered and said unto it, let no man eat fruit of thee hereafter for an age. Difference number 1. For the time of figs was not yet. A logical and natural question to be asked now by any thinking mind is what? If it was not the time of figs, why did Jesus look for figs? I have said before that Jesus must have known that there were no figs there on that tree. Still, he went up to the tree as if he expected some figs on it. So, but the time was not. He wanted to show that there should have been fruits. He wanted to show that the Jewish nation should have recognized him as the Messiah, and they should have accepted the invitation to the high calling. So, having a Jewish nation in front of him, symbolized in the fig tree, he said, well, I was sent by God down here on earth to come to you, of course, to lay down the ransom price, but before I do it, I would like to start a gospel age call. I would like to call a certain class of people from your nation. So I come down and I want the fruit. You had been being prepared. You had been prepared for many centuries, from Moses down all the ages, and God, myself, we expect some fruit. So he didn't hide the fact that the fruits should have been there. And we agree that they should have been. It was a kind of disappointment, right? That the Jewish nation hadn't brought the fruit expected. Of course, God knew about it all along, but it doesn't mean that there should have been fruit. That's why he came up to the tree and he showed that he expected them to bear fruits, to show fruits. It is mirrored in the parable about the feast to which those invited will not come. Another of our Lord's parables. You remember that parable, that there were three special individual guests invited first. You may be surprised that these special individual guests are priests, scribes, and Pharisees, but I have no time to prove that. It can be easily proven from the Gospels that the three individual guests who had been invited before the feast and then only summoned on the day of the feast that everything is ready, please come, and the three refused, they were priests, scribes, and Pharisees. They were, from God's point of view, they were the first they should have been the first to react, because they were closer to God than publicans and sinners. I have another topic on that, only about this parable, but of course we have no time to mention all the details, but these were the three special individual guests. When they refused, all of them refused, the special guests from the Jewish nation, priests, scribes, and Pharisees, refused. Then, as we remember, the second calling, so to say, from among the Jewish nation was publicans and sinners. Please note that both the individual three guests, to which the invitation was sent first, and the publicans and sinners were residents of the same town, Jewish nation. Because, yes, Jesus shows that when the priests, scribes, and the Pharisees refused, so Jesus looked for little flock members from the publicans and sinners. They reacted partly. They reacted more than the others. But when they did come in, and when they took the places that had been prepared, and there was a lot of empty space. So, stage number 3, the Lord in the parable says, now, because there are still remaining seats, vacant seats, and how many chairs were there at the feast? 144,000. So we don't know, but maybe only a few thousand came from those publicans and sinners, so we can expect that much more than 100,000 had to be looked for somewhere else in the heathen nation. That's why in the parable we learn that the servant that was calling all those people to the feast had to go where? Into the highways and hedges, out of the town. And out of the town is out of the Jewish nation. To the west, to the north, to the south, to the east, to look for the heathen people to come in. Because the residents of the town, including group number 1, the specially privileged priests, scribes, and Pharisees, who should have been the first to accept Jesus, did not react at all. Publicans and sinners reacted partly. We don't know how many, but they did. Still, there were a lot of vacancies. When our Lord Jesus came in the second advent, do you know from the Bible, what do you think? Who did he expect to accept him first? Did he expect that Pastor Russell and Bible students were to accept him first? No, they didn't exist then. When Jesus came down, he expected that the nominal church leaders, when they learned from Pastor Russell that he had arrived, when the news spreads among the Christian churches that Jesus is down here with his second advent, that they would accept him. But they didn't. That's why they were then, 3.5 years later, in 1875, spit out of his mouth because and the lost people were called to leave Babylon and to come to Pastor Russell and his harvest message, because all the big churches refused to accept, just like the Jews refused to accept him, and the call and the message was addressed somewhere else, to other destinations, other people. The other difference lies in the wording of the curse, and we will spend some time on that now. Let's compare both accounts, just the curse words. Matthew says, "Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward for an age," meaning, let no class of spiritual Israel grow on you as a nation for an age, for the gospel age. And of course it means, flowing from this is the fact that such a class will never grow on the Jewish nation of spiritual Israel, because the election of spiritual Israel is limited to the gospel age only. After the gospel age, there will be no spiritual Israel. In the Gospel age it is limited, and after that, yes, after the Gospel age and spiritual Israel, God's plan provides for the rest of the world and restitution in the millennial age. Mark says that no man eat fruit of thee hereafter for an age. So, additionally, as a second consequence of Israel's Gospel age rejection, let no one benefit from you in any way. Let no one eat fruit of thee. Meaning that when that age is over, other peoples, other nations, will in fact start eating fruit of Israel, will start somehow benefiting from Israel. Because as we know, the new covenant will be made with the whole world, as we know, no, with Israel. And it will spread from Israel to all the other nations. Will there be anything to eat for people, for other nations then? Of course. All the new covenant arrangements will be coming to them from Israel. A lot of food for the people from Israel to eat in those days. And now a few scriptures to prove it. For I will not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceit. He of course addresses the heathen, those from the west, east, so that they are not so too proud in their own estimation. That blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob, for this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. No comment, I think, is necessary. More on that, new covenant from Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Jeremiah 31. Behold, the days come, said the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. This shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And Ezekiel, a new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. Yes, as long as God's law is written either on stone, as here, or on clay tablets, or on paper. In other words, as long as God's law is outside of man, and the man doesn't have it in his heart, only reads the law which is written somewhere else, yes, on paper, on stone, he sins. Because he finds it very difficult to adapt to the law which is outside of him. That's why God says, I will change that. I don't want my creatures, people, to live with my law outside of them, even if it should be very close to them, 1 meter away, 1/2 meter away. I want my law to be inside them, to be part of their nature. That's why he promises here to write it in their hearts. It will save some paper, of course, but what's more important, it will make it impossible for people to sin, because you would have to go against your nature. How can you go against your nature? Have you ever seen a dog going against his nature and chirping like a bird? No, it's not part of the dog's nature to chirp. So if God's law becomes part of our nature, it will be impossible for us to sin. So the two must come together. People and God's law. God's law not written somewhere else, even close to people, but God's law written, engraved, we might say, within themselves, on their hearts, inside. Please note, the new covenant will not be made with the human race as such, but with Israel, I've mentioned that before. For other nations to come under its provisions, they must become part of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. That's why we can imagine that easily there will be no borders between countries, because everybody will become part of Israel. One country, one nation throughout the world. The only thing left out of the picture is which part of Israel or which tribe of Israel will I be a part of? It will depend on my probably character. Because there are 3... What's that? Is it a signal that I should end my talk? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Or maybe, hopefully it is not.
Rather, you hit the source button on the controller?
No, I don't. I can only control the run of slides. It must be something with. It must be something to do with Yes. With the cables, the brother is in charge of.
Yeah, always blame it on the brother.
There's no signal, brother.
Yeah. Maybe the computer stopped working.
Yeah, I think it might have the juice that died there.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Fortunately, we could, yes, we could save the situation. Okay, so probably I didn't. Have I read Isaiah or not yet?
Not yet.
Ah, because I said which part is, which tribe of Israel will we become part of? Everything probably depends on our character, because there are 12. Well, depending on how you count, yes, you can count the number of attributes of character as well. 1, love, or maybe 4, love plus justice, power, or it can be 12, or it could be the entirety. So probably the 12 fruits of the Spirit. Each tribe of Israel probably will represent one special quality, characteristic, developed very, very highly. And those people who will be similar, for example, in love, will be in one tribe of Israel. And those who will be similar in justice will be maybe in another. Those who will have meekness as a special adornment of their character, more than the average, will be part of another tribe of Israel. We don't know, but there are 12 tribes of Israel, and there are 12 fruits of the Spirit. So it probably means that that's how people will be divided, which will be beautiful, because we will not be equal. Perfection doesn't mean that everybody will be exactly the same. Brother Bob may be more humble than myself. We are both wearing ties, right? So maybe we would be in the same group, in the tie lovers. Okay, let's turn back to Isaiah. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established at the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come you, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion, heavenly face, shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, heavenly face. And one more from Zechariah 14. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles shows our standing before God. And it shall be that those, please note, who will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. Probably not a literal rain, but no rain of restitutional blessings. They will be out of the picture until they walk into Israel and become part of one of the 12 tribes. Otherwise, they will be denied the rain. I think literal rain would also push them to Israel if they didn't have it long enough. So, summary. The cursed fig tree summary. Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward for an age. What does it mean? Israel was not rejected, or has not been rejected forever, but only for the period called the times of the Gentiles, during which the church is completed from among the heathen nations. And that's why they were rejected, and that's how long they were rejected for. For the time of fig was not yet. Another important statement from Jesus. During Jesus' first advent, Israel did not bring the fruits desired, although they should have, but they didn't. And this incident shows it. But only made believe. As a nation, they did not accept the Messiah, even going as far as to crucify him, which was, of course, part of God's plan. Let no man eat fruit of thee hereafter for an age, the other curse word. Israel will start bringing fruits only after the times of the Gentiles are over, after God makes with them the new covenant, which will inaugurate Jesus' kingdom on earth, first for Israel, and then for the rest of the world. The story of the cursing of the fig tree is special because it tells the whole truth about Israel's rejection and their way back to God, implying there is a reason for the rejection, the reason being offering the high calling to the heathen. It proves Bible historical events type or symbolize something greater than themselves, which is not recognized by Most Christians, including Bible students, increasingly so, we must say. Shows that time is wholly subjected to the antitype as its more important part. There's also something interesting, because sometimes we quote different things from the Old Testament and we wonder, why did it happen this way? It is sometimes hard for us to find the logic in it. We must remember that the antitype is more important than the type. And what the type describes is, the type describes the thing as it should work out in the antitype. If you remember, for example, Nisan the 14th, the Jews were to eat the lamb, and they were to eat all of it. But should there remain anything until the next day, they were to burn it. But those who could not hold the Passover feast on the Nisan 14th, because they were defiled or far away, traveling, they were to do it 1 month later, on the 14th day of the second month. And again, the message says they should eat the whole lamb, and not a word is said about burning the remnants. Do you think that there were none? There's no place in the antitype. So probably they burned them, probably. But we don't have a record of that, because there's no place in the antitype. Because Nisan the 14th is the gospel age. When Jesus married, is imputed. And even if it is imputed to millions of people, it doesn't go out of existence. After the gospel age is over, when the millennium morning comes, the burning symbolizes the finishing of the imputation process. But when the same ransom is applied for mankind in the millennium, the second month, the 14th of the second month, it will go out of existence by its very application. So there will be nothing to burn at the beginning of the ages to come, on the next morning. But in the type, they had that problem. I think even the problem was greater than on Nisan the 14th, because on Nisan of the second month, fewer people ate the Passover lamb. Only those that were defiled 1 month before, and only those who were traveling, and as such could not. But the type doesn't mention, and they say, okay, so it means that they shouldn't have done that. I'm sure they did it. They knew what to do, but it is not recorded for us, because there's no place for it in the antitype. So Jesus said, "Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward for an age. Let no man eat fruit of thee hereafter for an age." Yes, what do higher critics say? Did Jesus say this or that? Another problem. What would you say? I don't know. He must have said one way or the other. He couldn't have said on one and the same occasion both curses, because they're different. And they are differently recorded for us because the message is different in the antitype. But in the type, it was one way or the other. I don't know which one it was. And God doesn't care which one it was. It is not. The message is there for you to see the deeper meaning and not the historical meaning. And we see that everything is subjected to the antitype. It's worth remembering when we come to all the different things in the Old Testament. It confirms and justifies highly symbolic language of the Bible, even in plain narration. Again, Jesus' words, which are connected with the fig story. For if Jesus says, when then he was led to the cross, that was on the day when he was being led to the cross, and he said in Luke 23, "For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?" Didn't he make an allusion to his adventure with the fig tree and the figs which were not there and the cursing of the tree? If they do these things in the green tree, while the nation is still in God's favor, because they were still in God's favor, it was about to end soon after Jesus' rejection, what shall be done in the dry? In the period after they are rejected, when they are a dry tree. Because in those days, that tree was still green. It was to become dry in a few years. 3.5, yes, to be precise, later. Or, another example of symbolic language of the Bible connected with what is found in the Old Testament, in this case, Hebrews 13:13. "Let us go forth therefore unto him without the camp, bearing his reproach." Do you, brethren, go without the camp? Do you have a camp? And you go there, you visit the place? It makes sense only if we understand that they are tabernacle shadows. And if you understand that without the camp is the place where the bodies of the animals offered were burned. And that means something. It symbolizes our suffering, Jesus' suffering and those who follow him. So instead of encouraging the brethren, suffer in dignity. Don't be afraid of the sufferings, persecutions, shame, whatever should befall you. But he might have said that. But he uses a symbol from the Old Testament. Let's go without the camp. And he leaves it at that. And maybe some Christians might have built a camp and they go out of the camp without the camp because Paul said that we should go without the camp. It makes sense only if you understand the symbol. Again, the type. So the language of the type influences, penetrates all the other, a lot of different scriptures in the New Testament and in the Old Testament. And the story also suggests that not only the Old Testament, but also New Testament events are types, shadows of things to come. I remember Brother Johnson writing somewhere that all that happened while Jesus was here on earth, and all that is described in the New Testament, is a type of things to come in the millennium. If the Old Testament showed what was to come in the Gospel age, the New Testament is a record of what happened during Jesus' stay on earth, and also a type of things that will be happening in the millennium, of which we don't know much at the moment, because it is not the truth as due. It will be given to us by the worthies when they come up from their graves. But this story with Jesus shows that there is something to it, because at least this one event is a type of what was to happen with the Jewish nation and how it should end with the end of the Gospel age. For one final scripture from Romans, for if the casting away of them, of course Israel is meant, be the reconciling of the world, this reconciling of the world is allowing the heathen into the high calling. Because the heathen were excluded from all of God's favor. They were not reconciled with God. It was only God and the nation of Israel, and all the others were out. If the casting away of Israel be the reconciling of the world, allowing them into the high calling, what shall the receiving of them, Israel, be but life from the dead? For some time, even though I had been in the truth since I was born, for some time I didn't understand the message. Paul, in so many words, says that when Israel is fully recovered, is back in God's favor, it means the resurrection for the rest of the world. Doesn't it say so? If the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, allowing them into the high calling, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? It would be so, and Israel is being recovered. That's why we take so much interest in what is happening to them, and we wish them a quick recovery, a complete recovery, because it means that all the other people that are in the graves will leave their graves. The return of Israel to God through Jesus means is tantamount to a rising from the dead for the whole world of mankind. And with this picture and with this scripture, I leave you for this evening with some with blessed thoughts to accompany us and take us on until tomorrow. May God add His blessings to this presentation. Thank you.